This Gasparilla Overload has been a lot of fun to record, partly because I got the chance to reconnect with two friends from UT. Today's guest and I even worked on a collaboration featuring my book, Mr. Lancey Talks Mental Health, and you can check that out in the show description. Marco Varrino, also known as Wildcard, is a well-established DJ and producer based here in Tampa, Florida. So, of course, he is celebrating the Gasparilla Overload with us. He started DJing in college at UT for extra cash on the weekends, but once he graduated, it turned into a full-blown career. After 10 years of DJing top 40 at Macdinton's Tampa, he's taken the next step now into music production. Wildcard has had a huge year, signing over 20 records in 2021 to various labels. Now, plans for a bigger 2022. He's got releases on Low Ceiling, Wildcard, Happy Techno, Relyt, Whorehouse, and more. His tracks and records have also been supported by many artists, including Shiba San, Lex Lay, and tons more. I'm excited to shed light on all the hard work he's been doing. So stay tuned and welcome back to That Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Vincent A. Lancey, and thank you for stopping by. Everyone here in Tampa, we are closing in on Gasparilla Day. Be safe and have fun. You can learn more about me at Vincent A. Lancey across social media platforms, and my website is vincentalancy.com. If it's your first time joining us, each week since 2019, I've had the opportunity to sit down with the founder of a company or brand, and we discuss what works well for them, what they needed to improve on, and all these learning lessons in between. There's also bonus series, which includes this Gasparilla Overload and Rewind the Clock episodes, where I bring back past guests who have new updates for you all. You never know which motivational journey is going to inspire you most. But here we are, day 7 of the Overload. It's certainly flying by, and it's an honor to shed light on 9 amazing Florida entrepreneurs. I gave you a little preview of Marco before, so now I'm going to bring him on to do a better job. Marco Varrino, Wildcard, thank you for stopping by.
That's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Please introduce yourself to everyone before we dive into business talk.
Hi, everybody. Marco Varrino. People also know me as Wildcard. I've been a DJ producer in the Tampa Bay area for the last 10 to 12 years. And yeah, now my journey really has been starting since, COVID, really producing a lot more music, signing to labels, preparing for the future. And yeah, that's about it so far.
Well, I'm excited for everybody else to learn all of the updates you've had. I'm seeing him on social media. It's very frequent. He's got something to post, which is a good thing. But let's backtrack just a little bit, Marco. What led you into entrepreneurship?
I think the first thing was pretty simple for me. I just knew that I needed to work for myself. I knew I wasn't going to really ever work for anybody else, and I wanted to continue a journey where I was doing something of that nature. And entrepreneurship, if you look at it, when you look at, a lot of artists and a lot of, musicians, and taking that route, it's a long journey. It's a long journey, and you got to really put in the work, and it's important to do that. And for me personally, the reason I got into it is just I knew that, this is something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to make sure that this was my career.
I could resonate with how long things take. In year 8-ish of my journey, and it still feels like I'm only just beginning after doing some cool stuff already, making a difference on some levels. It is just beginning as well. What do you find challenging about being on your own, though, Marco?
I think the hardest thing is just working and knowing that there's pretty much not going to be a result right away.
Right.
And knowing that you got to put them, your one foot in front of the other, and that you're going to get there at a certain goal at a certain amount of time, and that, results aren't going to be there right away. It's like, working out or doing anything. Like, you can work out once or twice a week, but, if you work out 4 or 5 times a week, you're going to really see results and do things. So you just got to keep the consistency and really work really hard for what you're trying to get, and put those goals in front of you, put the blinders on, and just go for it. And I'm seeing the most results now when I'm doing that. But it was definitely the hardest thing for me to get going and get that whole train going, and just starting your day knowing that, hey, I'm doing all this work today, putting 12 hours in the studio, and I'm probably not going to see $1 or, something at the end of the day. But in the long run, I'm going to be seeing a career that I'm, creating.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. Even with me, I want these books to be bestsellers right away. But as a self-publisher, these books might not even be to really where they're going to be for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
It might take me to get even more established for people to have that recognition with the book. COVID passing again. There's a lot of hurdles just to get into the school, but delayed gratification. Thank you for shedding light on that. To all aspiring entrepreneurs listening on, things are going to take a lot of time, and it is very hard to accept at first. But once you believe in yourself and buy into your own mission and really go all in, I think it's all worth it. And Marco, would you agree with that?
100%. I 100% agree.
Looking back across your journey so far, though, you've had a lot going on. You've learned a lot. What is one of your greatest lessons learned that you can share with everyone tuning in today?
I think just push away the ego. I think the ego, set aside your ego, set aside the pride, like all that stuff, and just really just understand the world right now is very social media driven. There's a lot of people who want to look on and see what you're doing, but at the end of the day, focus on you and focus on what you have to do every single day in order to achieve the goals that you set. Make a whiteboard, do what you have to do, and make sure you achieve them, and just put everything away. Put all the distractions away and make it as least amount of distractions as possible. I think that's the most important thing. I learned a lot. Put all those distractions aside, and just absolutely crush it, and just take that time.
I love the way you said that. I'm a big whiteboard person too. You have to minimize distractions, and that looks different for everybody. Some people can work with a lot of noise going on. Some people need it to be quiet. Leverage your strengths and don't just work in an environment that isn't best for you to succeed. You only have X amount of hours in the day where you're going to work, so don't waste them in a setting that is not going to put you in a position to succeed. To succeed, though, Marco, we do have to constantly be learning. For me, networking a lot, reading. If you could choose to sit down and learn from any entrepreneur throughout history, who would you choose?
There's a few. And I think it works for everyone who works. If you are in the music industry or the artist industry, you gotta respect every genre, and I think or every style there is out there, because a lot of people are doing a lot of different things with different different cultures. And if you look at Dr. Dre is one for me for sure, and I think Steve Aoki for me is another. And Hans Zimmer would be another one for me as well. I mean, you got to look at the other side of it. You got movies, you have music, you have hip hop, you have house music, you have 100 different people. They all do it a different way. And for me, Dr. Dre is definitely up there. I mean, he's definitely, he's kept quiet in social media, he's barely any crazy news about him. And he continues to always put out insane product and great work. And if you look at Steve Aoki, he plays over 300 shows a year, still at his age. I know he's in his 40s.
Yeah, he's
still 300 shows a year. Like, that just shows you the dedication he does and everything about it. And to me, it's inspiring. It's very inspiring. Look at Hans Zimmer. I mean, he's the GOAT when it comes to all movies and everything that he's done, the scores that he's done. So if you look at it that way, I would love to pick his brain. So
all right, well, if you could choose one of those entrepreneurs in any location, where would the location be? If any location is more meaningful for one of them, who would you choose?
Location? Like as in where?
Where would you want to sit down with these guys?
Where would I want to sit down with these guys? Honestly, probably a private island. Somewhere you can actually really just zone out and just forget about everything else in the world and just have a great conversation. Mm-hmm. That'd be great for me.
I like that. Now let's look into the future, Marco. I mentioned in the beginning with your preview, you've had some signings, you had some record label signings. Yes. Let's delve a little deeper here and talk to our listeners. What do you have going on?
All right. Well, what's coming up is the big ones. I mean, last year was a real growing out coming year. I mean, I signed a lot of great labels, reputable labels. But this year I do have a lot of big releases, one on Low Ceiling, 2-song EP. They're ranked number 2 for my genre of tech house. Big label, should be out in April 22nd. And I'm hoping it propels. I hope this is a stepping stone, another step in the right direction. I have them. I have Wildcard Records, which is another reputable label out of UK. Whorehouse is another one out of the UK, very reputable, a lot of funk music that I did. And Happy Techno is in Spain. And I've been releasing a lot of my music in Spain and getting a lot of great responses there. And the goal really is to just get to a point where my discography is, you can't fight the fact that I'm making good music and I'm forcing people to listen. And that's the real thing. Just getting people on board. If I have this photography over, 200, 300 songs I've signed over, the course of 3 or 4 or 5 years, I'm building a career. It's all, you can't not notice it. It's impossible. So, that's the future. The future is that world tour. I mean, that is the goal that has been on the whiteboard since day one. It's going to continue to stay there until it's achieved. And that's it. That's really it. That is what's coming up next.
I love it. You have to build the foundation. Everyone listening on, listen to the message he's sharing with you. He's putting in the work, and it's slowly but surely it's coming all together. I look forward to seeing what's next from you, Marco. As you mentioned, we have something coming up in April. Stay tuned. The links to find out everything Marco's got going on. Stay in touch with Marco. Will be at the end of the show, and they are in the show descriptions. And he just previewed our Spotlight Entrepreneur this week. If it's your first episode with us, right here near the end of the show, my guest and I go over another entrepreneur's journey to inspire you, the listeners, and we get our guest take on it. As we have a music entrepreneur on the show this week, we are going to talk about another, and I'm surprised that we didn't go over it yet, in Dr. Dre.
Yes.
I'm surprised the guest and I have not discussed this entrepreneur yet. Depending on what age you are, you may have a different memory of who Dr. Dre is. As a teenager, he discovered a knack for music, and his schoolwork was no longer interesting to him. He spent all of his free time writing lyrics and producing tracks. In 1984, he received what the article describes as the best Christmas present imaginable, a music mixer. This is where he transformed the small family home into a makeshift recording studio. His career progressed, and as many of you know, while performing with the world-class Wrecking Crew, Dre met many up-and-coming rappers on the scene. In 1987, Dre, DJ Yella, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, MC Ren, the Arabian Prince, and the DOC formed NWA together, and the music would cultivate a new underground genre known as gangsta rap. Now, many of you know him with his Beats headphones. He's also come across talent where I love the story about Eminem, where he found a copy of the Slim Shady EP on the floor of the gym where Jimmy Iovine went to. And then in 1997, Eminem appeared on the syndicated radio program, The Wake Up Show, where he did some freestyling, and this caused Dre to remember. Jimmy Iovine, a lot of you remember from the Netflix documentary. Marco, what are your takeaways on Dr. Dre?
I just think that the fact I love, well, one thing I love about Dr. Dre is his story. I think his story from beginning to end is the biggest thing for me. I mean, the fact that he just went out and went after it, got in the studio, worked with people, like started NWA and turned NWA into this empire, and how he did it. And just sitting back there and putting in the work. I know he started scratching and DJing when he was really young, and he turned his passion into a career. And I think that's the most inspiring thing for me.
That's the goal for, I know, at least you and I. That's something that we're both working relentlessly to accomplish. Thank you for your take on that, Marco. And thank you so much for taking the time to stop on the show today. I really loved how you talked about the delayed gratification, just because I can resonate, and every entrepreneur out there can experience that too. And hearing new stories of how other people are going through it too can maybe help someone get over that hump. Lesson learned was unbelievable. And I really like the whiteboard for everyone out there. It's easier to stay organized and succeed when you're all over the place. Stress rises and you can't really focus the way that you need to succeed. Where can everybody find you, Marco?
Find me on social media at Wildcard US, one word. And you could always go on Beatport, iTunes, search out Wildcard parentheses US anywhere, iTunes, Beatport, Pandora, Spotify, all those platforms. And that's where you'll hear the music that's been released. New stuff is coming. You can always check on my Instagram. I'll always be posting new stuff. So you'll be seeing it there.
Thank you for sharing that. Everyone, be sure to check out everything he has to offer. We are at That Entrepreneur Show on all social media except Twitter, because of the character limit. We are at Podcast by Lancey. I am at Vincent A. Lancey on YouTube, all social media, and my website is vincentalancey.com. My latest book is Mental Health Week. You can find that on Amazon, and it is time to end the show with a quote from today's Spotlight Entrepreneur. No matter how hard you work to bring yourself up, there's someone out there working just as hard to put you down. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode of the Gasparilla Overload with Taylor Wallace of Pause and Rec. Have a great Thursday.